If you want to make every single drive that you do in your car better, then this is the video to watch because it doesn't matter whether you are going on your way to work, to the grocery store, to hang out with your friends. Everything that we're going to talk about today is not only going to make every drive better, but it's just small little things that are very affordable that you can make every single drive better. And of course, when we approach our car and open the door, the first thing that most people think about is the appearance of your car. But we all know that sometimes when we're jumping into the car, we're doing it sometimes quickly, slowly, sometimes distracted on the phone. So I would argue that it's actually not the appearance of your car when you first open the door that makes the most impact, but actually, when we look at it, from this perspective, that's what most people think. I would argue the first thing that you really get every single time, it doesn't matter whether you're distracted, you're in a rush, or you're doing something else. The first thing that you'll notice when you open the car is the smell. And this is why I would recommend, if you want your car to kind of wow you, or at least put you in a certain state of mind every time you go in, smell is the most important thing to go after. Because out of all the senses that we have as humans, you might not know this, but smell is the only sense that goes directly to the brain. All of our other senses, touch, hearing, vision, all that stuff goes through, let's call it an interpreter. So all those messages can't go directly to the brain because the brain doesn't know how to interpret that information. Smell is the only thing that goes directly to your brain as far as the input that your nose receives. Those senses go directly to your brain. And if you don't believe me, maybe you guys can imagine a significant other or maybe the house that you had growing up. If there was a certain smell that you had that was of emotional significance to you, if you're out and about, say you're in a grocery store, you're walking in a parking lot, you're walking into your office at work, and if you catch that scent, it triggers a certain set of emotions, maybe very transiently, but I think we've all been there before where if you smell that certain scent, it triggers something in your head and you're like, I know where that smell is from. I know I've smelled this before. And you start looking for a person, or you think, that smells like my old childhood. Like you get something, it might not be very specific, but it's something that you're very much drawn to. And if it was a significant other, you can say it draws up some of those emotions again. You might feel like, oh, are they here? Where are they? I know that smell. I know who that is. So when you first get in your car, and I would say this is very important for a lot of us who use our cars as dailies and have to deal with a lot of traffic. So rather than saying, oh my goodness, I'm going to be so stressed going into work today, if you have this air freshener and you can use it distinctly for your car and it hits you the moment you get in, it can put you in that relaxing state of mind and you say, all right, focus on driving. Just try it. I typically like to use these vent clips just because they're more discreet and more out of the way than the bigger, bulkier ones. They don't necessarily last as long, but they're relatively cheap. And then the air freshener, this is just stuff that you guys can get at any of your like grocery stores or department stores, whatever. I just use, this is literally my combo right here. I like the fresh linen or the sky linen, whatever it is. And these two, even though they're different brands, they smell very, very similar to each other, that it's not like conflicting. It's not like I had linen and sky and like citrus air vents. That's kind of off-putting. I would have liked new car smell. However, not a lot of companies do it very well. I've tried quite a few since I've had the M235i and even in cars before that. And I always find myself coming back to this duo right here. But Once we lock down the scent, of course, getting back to that original picture, the next thing that we notice is the visuals. A lot of the times we're not always going to notice, or we're not always going to be distracted with, being on the phone or rushing. You can imagine, coming from the opposite side of that, you're leaving work and you're like, oh my goodness, it's a long drive home, or I had a really rough day. And then you get that big hit of a scent and you say, okay, it's time to drive. And when you kind of refocus that, you want to look at something nice like this, something nice and clean. And for myself personally, in the car, I don't have the carpet anymore. I have the rubber floor mats, just because it's a little easier to clean. And then for me, I also look down on the shifter. The Alcantara stuff, I will tell you, it does hold a lot of dirt and dust. Like, it might not be dirty, but it just holds a lot of dust. And so it can look a lot dirtier than it actually is. It's not as easy as something like the faux leather or the carbon fiber, where you can easily rub it off and it's good for a while. The Alcantara isn't as difficult as carpet, but it does hold onto that dirt just a little bit more. So you can imagine, you're like, okay, you get a good presentation here, and then boom, you're getting right into your central controls and everything looks clean and crisp, and you're like, all right. Versus having to look at a dirty center console, things are all over the place. Maybe you got papers and whatever stuff from work all over the place. When you get into your car, you want your car to really hone you in on just the drive, focus on just the driving. Because I think that a lot of us here, there are a lot of other people who probably aren't watching this video right now and who aren't in the chat with us right now. But I think most of us who are here are car enthusiasts. Like, we like to modify the car, work on our cars, do a lot of these things ourselves, whether it be to save money or just out of personal enjoyment, all in an attempt to eventually enjoy driving our car. So as much as possible, reduce the clutter, clean things up. And then once you step into the car and you see that your command center, if you will, is nice, you're focused and you're ready to go. And this is easy. For myself, I just use, I think, honestly, I forgot what store I was at. I think I have like a Target or a Walmart near my house or something like that. And this is years ago. This and Armor All, they're not known for vacuums. I just needed a vacuum, and it just so happened they had one and it was on sale. I picked it up and it's lasted for years. I think I've had this specific vacuum longer than I've had the M235i. And I used to use like interior cleaner and all that other stuff. But for the last 2 to 3 years, or actually 2 years, I've used the graphene detail spray, just because not necessarily, I'm not sponsored or anything by Adams, and you guys will see a lot of Adams products here. The thing that I really like about Adams is that they'll let you save money if you buy their products in bulk. Another really nitpicky thing is I actually like their sprayer. I've been using or repurposing their bottles, and their sprayer lasts a long time. Some of the stuff that I get at like Home Depot, like the trigger mechanism inside, like it breaks in a few months. But the Adams one that I've had has lasted me for years. So I enjoy saving money by buying in bulk, but I also enjoy that it's actually a good nozzle. And then when you twist it to either get the stream, the spray, or, where it doesn't spray at all, it actually works like right away. Some spray mechanisms, it takes a while, or like when you lock it off, it doesn't necessarily lock it off. Like this trigger on the nozzle, although rudimentary, it does exactly what it says it's going to do, which is funny because, the main thing to get here is what's in the bottle, not necessarily the sprayer, but it is a nice benefit as well, and why I typically will lean towards Adams. And so the reason why I get the detail spray inside the car is because, as you'll see in this video, I am not the most detailed person when it comes to like detailing and cleaning the car. I just like a clean car. It doesn't necessarily need to be like, spotless. I definitely don't do the interior detailing stuff that you see on Instagram, things like that. But I just kind of like want one thing. It may not necessarily need to be the best, but it needs to cover me for most of my bases. And that way I don't have to buy as much product. It doesn't have to take up as much space in my garage. And I don't have to worry about, oh, did I grab the wrong one? It's always going to be right. So this detail sprayer works great for interior work, but it pairs well nicely with the exterior of the car. And so this is what I was talking about earlier, is that uh, you can get it in this bottle, but you can also get it in this. I think this is like a gallon jug or something like that, and it lasts a long time. The detail spray lasts a long time. The shampoo, you go through it a little bit quicker, but the detail spray, I think I've probably went through like 2 or 3 shampoos, and I'm still on one, as far as ratios go, one detail spray. And so this is the same thing that I use in the interior as well as the engine bay, and on the exterior when it's time to clay the car. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, I do use their graphene shampoo, and I use the detail spray as the clay lubricant with a clay mitt. And again, this is it's not a dedicated clay lubricant. If you plan to ceramic coat the car, that's definitely not the clay lubricant that you would want to use. You would either want to use an iron remover or a dedicated clay lubricant. And you don't want to use this shampoo if you're about to ceramic coat your car. You're going to want to use like a strip wash. But if this is just like a regular wash, you're pretty much done after you clay and you put on your toppings or whatever. This is the same one that I use. And mostly it's for the convenience of, I can get a gallon jug. It's going to last me for a long time. And this combined with the graphene detailer, they're supposed to work together. So a lot of companies now, they're getting really savvy in terms of their product line. And if you actually use, say, like the graphene detail sprayer with the shampoo and say some of the other things like their coatings, which I actually didn't use, basically they're all designed to work together. And so supposedly that first layer should be able to last longer. So, for example, like this is how it works in theory, at least, is if you use their ceramic coating and then you use their wash over time, you use their detailer, you use their refresh ceramic coating, the chemical bonding that happens with there is going to be better and is designed to work better than if you were to use, say, different brands for each step along the way. Therefore, your ceramic coating would last longer and get closer to the advertised like maximum shelf life for the ceramic coating if you keep it in a garage and all the optimal conditions. This is part of the optimal conditions. It's using all of their branded items that are supposed to work together. Now, you don't have to. It's just what works well for you. What have you tried? And if any of you guys have experiences with anything like ceramic coating, washing, detailing, or even it doesn't have to be this brand, just let everybody know in the comment section. That way we can all learn. And if anybody's running sales right now, please share that in the comments as well, so that we can all save money as well. When it comes to wheels, so this is one of the ones where I actually don't use the atoms. P&S actually has a really good reputation as far as being able to safely clean the wheels and tires, and it's dual purpose as well. So it cleans the wheels, it cleans the tires safely, and also knocks off most of that dirt. Now, if it's really dirty, maybe you have to do 2 coats. If it's ceramic coated, maybe you only need to do 1 coat. But this generally has a good reputation for not damaging the finishes, for not stripping off the ceramic coating. And then from there, you can treat it with your typical wash, whether it be the regular car wash, or if you have a specific wheel and tire cleaner. And then from there, this is where I was talking about earlier, is I do use their graphene tire dressing. I used to use Meguiar's before, but for me personally, it was just a little bit too shiny. And you would also have to let it set for a little bit in order for it to not sling. I'm actually only trying out their graphene tire dressing for the first time with the new wheels and tires that I got. So far, so good. It actually gives off a shine that I'm more comfortable with. It's somewhat matte. It's not super glossy. So if that's your thing, this isn't for you. But a lot of what I'm saying right now is in order to make your drive better, everything from when you get out of the building, whether it be your house, your work, the gym, whatever it is, the moment that you get out and you start approaching your car, you want to make that experience from approaching the car, getting in, turning on the ignition. You want to make all of that as pleasant as possible. If you're approaching your car and it's dirty, you're like, oh my goodness, I got to get into this dirty car. Oh my goodness, the door handle. I just washed my hands and now I'm going to get in there, and then it's going to get on the steering wheel and the shifter and all the things. You're making the drive less desirable. But if you remove those certain negative thoughts about getting into your car, it's going to make the drive better. It's going to help you focus on the drive better. Imagine if you had Alcantara, you touch the door handle, it was dirty, and then you touch the Alcantara, you're like, oh my goodness. And then the rest of the drive, you're like trying to position your hand in a weird way so that you don't get other parts of the Alcantara dirty. And then the moment that you get in the car, you're thinking, I gotta wash this as soon as I get home, otherwise this is gonna be here. You're not focused on the drive. The drive is no longer pleasant or enjoyable for you. And these are all just little things along the way that make the drive better that I think a lot of us do overlook. A lot of the times we're more focused on, all right, I need to get the suspension, I need to get the aero kit, I need to get new tires, whatever it is. We think of those type of modifications. Like, this is all the stuff that you need to do or you can do to make your car great right now. Or, you know, it's a little later in the day, but this is what you can do to make your car great tomorrow. And this is very entry level stuff. So nothing that I think that you really need to like watch a DIY for. Maybe as far as like technique or whatever, maybe. But it's not like installing suspension or getting in the proper wheels and tires for a car where you really need to study a little bit before you actually apply the modification. A lot of this stuff is just going to make your drive so much better. It's going to smell good, look good, you're going to feel good, and you're just going to focus on just the drive. There's no other distracting things, at least that are caused by your car. That is what will make your drive more enjoyable. And here we touched on a little bit of ceramic coating. Now, this is only the first time that I've ever played with ceramic coat, and so I use the Armor Shield 9, and everything that we talked about is going to be linked in the description so that it's a little easier for you guys to find. And this is all, I've tried all of this stuff, and if I didn't enjoy it, if I didn't like it, I wouldn't recommend it. And this is why I didn't recommend some of the other things that I said I tried before, but I'm not using right now. So the Armor Shield 9, I was actually very surprised with how easy it was to apply. I saw a lot of other videos of people saying, you know, ceramic coating, you got to make sure that it's done by a professional because the cure time, and if you don't remove it, it'll stick. The Armor Shield 9, believe it or not, I made a mistake of ceramic coating my window, which isn't a mistake in of itself, but I forgot to buff it off. And so it was hanging out there for like 3 or 4 days. And I was like, oh my goodness, why is it so fuzzy or hazy? And then I buffed it off, and it wasn't like the hardest thing in the world. When you buff it off in its respective cure time, it's super easy. There's barely any resistance. I would say that Armor Shield, when it cured, was about as difficult to buff off as like regular wax, like liquid wax that you put on a polishing pad, you put it on the area, you let it set, and then you remove it with a microfiber towel. It's about that difficult to remove. Maybe a little bit less because it's not as thick as wax, but still very easy to remove. And I even ceramic coated my windows and I forgot to roll down my windows to remove it. And that stuff was on there for about 2 weeks and it buffed off pretty easily. So this is very user friendly. This is definitely a consumer based product. It doesn't have the advertised longevity of a professional coating, but it's very easy to apply. Everything that you need comes in the kit, minus like the prep spray. And if you guys do get this, 2 bottles were enough to fully coat the car twice, the wheels twice, all the calipers twice, and all of my recent carbon fiber pieces twice. And I still have a little bit left over in the second bottle. All that you need for that is 1 IPA prep spray. I got 2, didn't even open the other one. I think like the first spray is not even halfway used. So if you guys do plan to get this stuff, a little bit does go a long way. If you have a bigger car, like a 3 or 4 series, maybe you'll want to pick up 3. But I think even in a 3 series, you could stretch the 2 bottles. Like I probably did overcoat it like the first couple times until I got used to it. You could probably still get away with 2 bottles even on a 3 series. I wouldn't say the results are as dramatic as this, right? This is probably definitely an advertising thing, because if you have all these imperfections in the paint, it will show through no matter what coating that you have. But the reason why you get a ceramic coat is pretty much for the hydrophobic properties, and so that the water just kind of beads off instead of just hangs out. It's going to be so much easier to clean. And the thing with ceramic coating is that it doesn't make your car clean until the time is over. It just makes the cleaning intervals throughout that time a whole lot easier. And you can kind of think of the ceramic coating as a net. Let's say you're catching like big clumps of dirt or whatever in the net and it's dry. When you apply the water and you clean it, what happens to that dirt? It goes through the back end of the net. That's exactly kind of like what ceramic coat is. This is probably a poor example actually when I really think about it, but ceramic coating, it catches the dirt, and then when you clean it, it easily lets it go. However, over time, the net can get damaged, and there are like touch-up sprays like that have I think it's silicone or I forget the key ingredient in ceramic coating, but I think it's silicone or whatever it is, but they have like touch-up sprays to kind of maintain the finish. So basically you have to clean the net and then you can repair it. So after you do the wash, just do a little bit of a spray. Some of them you have to buff, some of them you don't, and then you just spray it back off and you've kind of replenished the functionality of your ceramic coat in order for it to last for a longer period of time. And so that is essentially what it should look like. And then from there, you get a nice looking car that you're not worried about getting into dirty situations because it's easy to clean. You've maintained the inside well. These are cars that are meant to be driven, so of course they're going to get dirty from from time to time. However, we can make those cleaning intervals much easier, and by keeping the car clean outside and inside, we're going to make our driving experience more pleasant. I would argue that it's better to maintain the interior of the car because that's where the driving happens. You kind of forget about like how dirty the outside of the car is, that it wasn't washed. You kind of forget about all that stuff the moment you get inside the car. And when you're driving, it's really like just what's going on inside the car that's really going to impact your drive. So I would say, just making sure that it's vacuumed, you have good air freshener, you've removed the clutter from the inside of the car. That's going to be the most impactful during your drive. And then you can just make sure that it doesn't have to be super spotless clean on the outside. Just make sure that, you get rid of the bird poop so that the paint doesn't degrade or that the clear coat doesn't delaminate and all that other stuff. You just want to make sure you take care of the big things on the outside, and the inside, the interior, you really, really want to take care of. A couple of quick tips is you can keep a detailer spray inside your car if you want, like in the trunk with a few microfiber towels. I found that it was just easier to keep like a pack of baby wipes in there. And the theory behind baby wipes is it has to be strong enough to, remove poop from, a baby's bottom, and the surrounding area, the work area, right? But it also has to be gentle enough to not cause like rashes or irritation to the skin, which, if it's good enough for that purpose, it should be good enough for the exterior and interior of the car. At least for something like bird poop, or if somebody has a drink in your car and it spills, it should be good enough for that. And then when you get home, if you really want to go like full on with your detail spray and your cleaners and stuff like that, you can. But as far as like just something in the moment, having a pack of baby wipes in the trunk has worked for me for a very long time. And that's what I usually recommend for people. You don't necessarily need to keep your whole detailing kit unless that's what you want to do in the trunk of your car. A pack of baby wipes takes up very little space. And it's going to be safe for the leather and the plastics and everything. So there's nothing really to worry about as far as like, is it too strong? Is it strong enough? It'll be fine. And so with that, we will open it up for questions. Isaac, that's certainly true. Is the first thing our body notices anywhere. Okay, smell. I think that's exactly what we're talking about. I saw your comment come in earlier. Just didn't have a chance to read it. But okay, I'm glad that you agree. Let's see here. AR. Have you seen aftermarket ambient lighting on the interior for F-Series? Yes, you can check out BimmerTech. I don't know if they have like all the different fancy colors and all that, but I know that they can convert like the incandescent bulb, like that yellowish color, to LED. And that is my view on them. With stuff like that, with electronics, just make sure you get it from a reputable dealer. The LEDs need to be good. Sometimes they're polarized, so you do have to put them in a certain direction. But if you're getting it from somewhere like BimmerTech, they've already been tested and should be up to spec and shouldn't give you any issues. I feel some look amazing and clean. Yeah, I would say you can go on Amazon, and if they're like in the hundreds of reviews and they're all positive, like they could still buy those. They could send out a few ones. Some people on Amazon, they rate on how good the customer service is as opposed to the actual product. If you find, some kind of lighting that has like tens of thousands of reviews and, maybe it's like 4.5 stars, that should be pretty reliable. From there, just make sure to read the reviews and then proceed forward. Because some of these companies, like they'll put like, say like a F and an E chassis lighting, or they'll put like a 3 and a 4 series lighting on there. And the bulbs for the 3 and the 4 series are drastically different, or from chassis to chassis, it's very different. So when you read the reviews, maybe the ones that are not applicable to your car are very good, and the reviews that are applicable to your car are bad. So just make sure when you have those listings that have multiple options in there, that you read the reviews that are specific for your car. Fabian, how do I enjoy my straight pipe N55? It's straight pipe, so I'm pretty sure that you're enjoying it already. I mean, I think the only issue for the N55 like is probably just if it's full straight, then probably the drone. That would be it. But a lot of people, if they straight pipe it, from like the cat on, a lot of people have said just to keep the resonator. If you wanted to go a cheaper route and you don't really care, you just want it to be a little bit louder, you could keep the muffler and get rid of the resonator. If you wanted to eliminate some of the drone. So it really depends on what sound you're going for. But, if you wanted to get a new exhaust and then you got rid of the cat, you could keep the resonator. Isaac, no questions for now. Thank you for the info. No problem. I hope it helped. And, all this stuff is not necessarily specific to BMWs or the question Q&A section right now that we have. It doesn't have to pertain to just BMWs or just detailing. This could be about anything, any video topic that we've covered before, or anything that maybe I didn't cover in a previous video. We could go over whatever it is that you guys want in this Q&A section. I'm actually hoping to have maybe some like interview style with some brands eventually. I think the first one that we might have up is the Rex Racing Wheels, just because I partnered with them very recently. You guys have probably seen a lot of my stuff on Instagram if you guys follow me there. A lot of stuff having to deal with their wheels recently. And I think the thing that I like about them, it's the design is nice. And although there are some companies who have designs that are somewhat similar, the thing that makes Rex Racing Wheels very unique compared to, say, like other companies that are more well known, is that when it comes to the 2 Series, the fitment is very, very tight. 8.5 is really pushing it, depending on what tire size that you get. And if you don't nail down that fitment exactly, you're gonna rub. Even if you clear the strut, you're gonna rub the fender, and rolling it might not be enough. You might need to cut into the fender. And some of these other companies, I've actually talked to and inquired with them, and I said, hey, like 8.5 with a an 18 by 8.5 with a 35 offset is probably the most that you can push in the front without any fender modifications. And if somebody doesn't have all the suspension upgrades like camber plates, adjustable control arms, and things like that, they're going to be very limited. And I would recommend that if somebody doesn't have all those modifications, at least the adjustable portions for the suspension, go the 8-inch wheel. You go with the 8-inch wheel, and you can dial back the offset to maybe like a 30 versus a 35, and probably still be okay, because you can't dial in any camber with the stock configuration. But I tried talking to, we all know who's pretty much like popular for BMW wheels. There's a company here out in the Bay Area. There's a company down in Southern California, and they all said, nope, this is what we're going to do. We don't really want to do something for the 2 Series, or we have wheel sizes in a different design. Like they're kind of dated in their design, but we do have that size for the 2 Series. Nobody really wanted to make like this kind of 5-spoke aggressive look for the 2 Series in an 18 by 8.5 with a 35 offset. Nobody really wanted to make that wheel for whatever reason. So I went to Rex Racing Wheels and I said, hey, could you guys make this size? And if people want to go up for the rears, they can, but this is probably what I would recommend at most for the fronts. And they said, yeah, actually, in fact, we make every set of tires, or sorry, every set of wheels to, the customer's specifications. So each customer will get to call or email in and say, this is exactly what I want. You're also going to have to let them know like what car it is. That way they can, properly drill out the center bore. And then they can also make sure that the lugs that you have, like the OEM lug style, will fit. Because BMW uses like a conical shape. Some other brands will use a different shape in order to seat the lug bolts or the lug nuts. Fabian, you are very welcome. Isaac, yeah, I saw them on your reels and they look really good and sporty. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, some people on there seem pretty mixed on like whether I should have kept the bronze look or if the exposed aluminum is really the better option. I think it's more of a classic BMW look, but the bronze on blue has been getting more popular recently. I actually got the idea from Keys Motorsports, and then it wasn't until after I got the wheels and I had them for a while that I started noticing it's actually more of like a Subaru thing, which actually gave Brian a lot of inspiration for that color scheme. I just was like, oh, that's a blue car. I have a blue car, and he's got bronze rims. I kind of want something different other than like the regular gunmetal silver type of look. However, those bronze wheels, in my opinion, look better the deeper the blue. So if you guys saw the 228i that I put the V1s on, though that car actually has my old wheels, and to me, the wheels look better on that car than it does on mine. The silver, or even maybe like a dark smoke to like a gunmetal would look better on my shade of blue, on the Estoro blue. That's just my opinion though. Isaac, I'm looking for a set of wheels for my 328i, but it's kind of hard to pick one with the amount of options available right now. Yeah, I mean, there's really only like, you have Titan 7, you have Apex. The 328i, you're not as limited in terms of wheel sizes and tire sizes as you are with the 2 Series. Now, if you guys ever took like just like a bare wheel, no tires installed, and you slapped it on a 2 Series, you would say, Fritz, there's a ton of space between the strut as well as the wheel well. But the moment you put on tires, especially if you want to go thicker in the front, which I think they come stock with a 225, if you want to go to a 235 in an all-season tire with a 40 profile, you're going to rub on the fender. That's actually the issue that I'm having right now. And I've maxed out the height on my KWs. I've probably have like 1.5 to 2 degrees worth of camber, and I've got pretty much every adjustable arm that you can have, at least in the front. So I have Vorschlag camber plates. I have the SPL thrust arm and lower control arm. And playing with all of that to get this to fit has been a challenge. I would say I still have to take it back in to really dial it in, but it's tough. Like the 225 fit, it wasn't too bad. A 245/35 4S fit, however, that 4S does run shorter on the profile, and then a summer tire has less tread usually than an all-season tire, at least if you're comparing within the brands. So I'm running the all-season 4s right now. So I'm running the Michelin all-season 4s with a 235/40/18 tire with an 8.5-inch wide rim. And it is rubbing on the fender. So the issue isn't necessarily the rim, but once you put the rubber on there, if you want it to go thicker, that's where you'll encounter the issue. And you could go with a 35 profile, but if you guys saw my previous video, if you live in an area like California, you take a pothole, you don't get a lot of protection. Like a 35 has, if I'm not mistaken, let's look at it. So let's see here. 35% of 245 is 85 millimeters or 85.75 millimeters worth of sidewall. So that's the cushion that you have from the, the top of the tire or the outside of the tire to the rim. Versus, okay, so let's remember let's call it 86. Let's do 40% of 225, 90. So we're at 4 millimeters more. So we're about 8 millimeters more worth of protection with 235/40 versus a 245, even though the 45 is wider, but 40% of 235 is 8 millimeters more than the 35% of 245. Not only that, is the all-season has more tread than the all-season 4, So I would say that if you really wanted to, like it's barely making it. So if you wanted to go to a 235 40 in a 4S, you'll probably make it. It'll be tight and you'll probably need some sort of ability to adjust the camber, but it can fit. You want to go straight up, then 225 is very safe, but you are going to have some rim exposed. So for that, what I would recommend really is, if you don't have anything to adjust the camber in the front, go with a 18 by 8 with a 30 offset and go 225. That's for a square fitment. And I would say like that's a good safe fitment. If you want to go staggered, it doesn't really matter. But if you want to go staggered, then 8s in the front. Don't do an 8.5. Like it's a headache. The only reason why I wanted the 8.5 is for the rears, but I wanted to run a square setup so I can properly rotate my tires. Therefore, my fronts have to be 8.5 as well. There's a lot of weird, complicated math when it comes to wheels and tires. And the Apex website is great for that. They have a an F30 profile page. So you guys can just like look up like and boom. There it is. And they give you kind of like, and these are very conservative numbers as well, as far as like what will fit, staggered or square. And so all of this stuff should fit. You can probably push the envelope a little bit and you still be fine. But you know, for like liability reasons, and of course they would rather not push the limit as far as like what's possible. They would rather be in the very much safe zone, you know, because they are an organization. And so they don't want any bad reviews of this, of like there was a random tire brand that had a higher tread than typical, and because of that it didn't fit. There was some, it caught on the fender. So here it's very much like, yes, at this profile, doesn't matter the brand, this will fit under these guidelines. And that's kind of what they're going for. And this is exactly how I searched up my fitment for the F22. They have one here as well. Same thing, staggered, squared. This is one of the ones that I really wanted, the VS5RS. They don't make them in an 18 by 8.5 with a 35 offset. And I asked them if they ever would come out with one, and they didn't seem too enthusiastic to make anything for the 2 Series folks. So just because probably like market share, it's not that popular. So that's why, or one of the main reasons why I went with Rex Racing wheels, is just because they're willing to do a fitment specific for the 2 Series. Key. Hey, love your videos. Going to do control arms and new shocks and struts on an F32, and will follow your videos for some parts. Question. Would you buy a cup kit to change mounts and bolts? If you're going to have, if you want to slam your car, a cup kit is probably the best way to go, just because it'll give you, it'll allow you to run so low and also be able to allow you to clear speed bumps. You can look up SV Bimmer cup kit. That's the one that we had from Stance Parts, and just see if that's enough. The thing with cup kits, I think that make them really good, is that they're able to be used with smaller and smaller compressors. So that's the only thing, is you have to have power going to the compressor. You're gonna have to have lines. It'll work. It's just a few more steps, but it can absolutely work. Debating whether to reuse Debating whether to reuse to save like $400 or swap it out. Obviously, we'll replace important ones like axle bolts. If you don't really want to be low, oh, let's see here. F32, no, you should have space. If you really want to slam your car, yeah, go with the cup kit. Otherwise, I would say like you can get camber plates and call it a day. Because if you install it, if you don't have a spring compressor, the money that you could have spent on a spring compressor, just spend that on getting camber plates. Unless you do that that little trick that I did with the F22 where I didn't have a spring compressor but was still able to get it out. Basically, you just undo the top mount while the strut is compressed. So basically you have the axle pressed up with your jack and then you slowly let it out. Fabian, I have NGK cold spark plugs, CSF intercooler, the 6-inch intercooler, downpipe, exhaust elite, turbo inlet, aluminum charge pipe, and no tune. Is it bad? No, it doesn't really matter. I mean, you're just running a little lean, probably. But if you wanted to get the most out of your tune, basically you're bringing in a lot of air into the combustion chamber. And you probably don't have enough fuel to interact with that much air. And so you're just running a little bit lean. It's not like the worst thing in the world, but if you wanted to get the most performance from your modifications, yes, you would want to run a tune. Stereo Sound Agent, how's it going? Personally, I'd run at 8 in the front, 8.5 in the rear, but also I like to run summer 4S tires year round. Okay, yeah. That's actually normally my go-to. However, I saw the tire review channel and they said that the all-season 4s are 80% of the 4Ss and are significantly cheaper and perform better in wet situations. And I was just thinking, there's so much traffic in the Bay Area. I'm ever hardly pushing it. You know, I'm probably not pushing the 4Ss into that, that 20% that I'm missing from the all-season 4s. And I wanted a tire that would last a little bit longer. So I was like, hey, it's a little bit cheaper, get a little bit more tread. I want to give it a shot. The 225, here's the other thing. With the 225s, depending on how much power you have, you might slip when you really let it on. Not like as you're going, but just on the get off. Once it catches, it's good. I've only slipped a couple times on the 235s. We'll see. I've never slipped on the 4Ss. I think even when my wheels were kind of getting to the bald stage, I never slipped in 4Ss. Never, never, never. So I agree with you. If I don't like the all-season 4s in this configuration, I will go back to the 4Ss. It's better for fitment too. Isaac, didn't know about that site. I will take a look. I'm not that used to changing wheels, so it becomes complicated to get a whole new set. Just so I don't like how it looks later. Seeing pics before helps, yeah. My contacts. You can also look at Fitment Industries. Let's see here. Oh no, you have an F32. So Fitment Industries, they have a ton of pictures of cars. It gives you the configuration of it, tires, what other modifications that they had. This way you can get an idea of like what will actually work. Let's see. Here we go. And so this is another good site to reference. I think like Apex is really good as far as like the actual numbers, but compare the numbers from the Apex website to Fitment Industries and see if you actually like that look. That's a good cross reference to use. Stereo Sound Agent, really helpful info. Is that Apex F22 fitment page that good of you to share? It's pretty good. Like, I can't say about for all the sizes, obviously, but let's just see here. I did want to run a square fitment. I don't know about the 17s. I can't speak on those. But as far as me not wanting to run spacers, front and rear 18, ET35 or 38. 38 is close. I mean, of course, we're talking about millimeters here. Like, I would not run a 38 if you have stock suspension. If you have aftermarket suspension and the spring has a smaller diameter than the OEM, then maybe. I would say, again, cross-reference to Fitment Industries because people actually put the suspension that they have on that page. But see, one of the things here is typically a direct fitment, certain compounds, you know, talk about tires, and then it also talks about camber, all that stuff. For that, the 235 right here, it can be a direct fit. So meaning it depends on the wheels, tires, and your suspension. This fit, and I would say that the 245 probably fit. It fit better than expected. So this was actually really good. And the 1.5 degrees of camber, that was more or less spot on. So it was so spot on that when I just wanted to see like how good it would be with 225s. I didn't need to adjust anything with that, obviously, because I'm going to a smaller tire. And so I was able to actually reduce the camber to get better wear out of the tires. But that number was more or less spot on. If you wanted to go, let's see here. Front and rear ET40, that should still work. You're getting really close, I would think. And then right here, it's telling you that's about right. A 3 or 5 mil spacer for this setup. The thing with Apex is that they actually get a lot of cars in, and you know, some people will like kind of like donate their car as far as like, let's figure out like what size and all this other stuff will work. And so that's how they come up with these numbers. These are actually more or less like what they see in real time. And that's how they get to make the recommendations. They do have a shop where they actually like for like the sponsored cars. They're not really sponsored. You know, like some people will like maybe for a discount or something, like they'll bring the cars in and, you know, in exchange for the discount, Apex will be able to determine, you know, do we really need spacers? How much camber do we need for this? All that type of stuff. So if they don't have a lot of information on your car, you could lean towards Apex and say, hey, you know, for a discount, would you be willing to give me a discount in exchange? I'll bring in my car if you're local and, you know, give you these numbers. Key. I meant kits with new shocks and strut mounts with replacement bolts. We'll be installing a B12 Bilstein kit. Okay. I would say it depends. Some of the cheaper brands that include it, like, they're okay. It might not last that long, is what I'm saying. Like with Vorschlag, Milway, oh my goodness, I always forget this last company's name. There's another company who makes camber plates. They're designed beefier. If you compare those camber plates to like the ones from like BC Racing or even the KW Club Sports, like they're much beefier. Like they can take a pounding much better than those other ones, just because the monoball is bigger, the thickness of the metal is bigger, and yes, those kits are designed to work together, but if you're getting it, like I would say, if the price of your kit without the camber plate is maybe $100 to $200 cheaper than if you're to buy the strut assembly or the coilover assembly by itself with an off-brand but a reputable brand camber plates, I would say don't go that route. Spend the extra $100 to $200 more and get a camber plate that was designed by a company that specializes in that, and then proceed forward. It's one of the things that I would just say is like it'll be an extra $100 to $200 well spent if you're already going to do it. Now, if you're telling me that you would rather just reuse the stock stuff, like that's fine too. But if you're telling me that you want new camber, new top hats, new strut mounts, and the difference is only like a couple $100, go with a brand that specializes in it. Bella, Fritz, I'm so sad my M235i value went from 27K last year to 20K this year without driving it at all. Oh, well, if you do plan to sell it, the time to sell might be right now. I do anticipate that the market will go down just because inventory is kind of coming up. We're not really going to see a thing, for, let's call it what it is. Like our more common cars, like M cars hold their values. The non-M cars don't really hold them as much. And we won't really see a thing like we saw in 2020 through early 2022, where cars went up in value versus typically going down. So if you want to sell, now's the time. But if you plan to keep your car for a long time, if you don't plan to sell it, I guess it doesn't really matter. The only time that it would really matter is if something happened to your car and you needed to claim it for insurance purposes. So hopefully that made you feel a little bit better. And you're saying that, yeah, 60,000 miles just sitting in garage. I did all preventive maintenance from diff fluid flush to trans flush, oil change every 5K, and took care of it like a baby, but a used market value, don't care. Yeah. I would say you could always like look at like what the dealer is selling it for, and then you can make a little bit less than that. Yeah, that's actually what I did. I just went on Facebook Marketplace. I priced my car according to like what it was, the going rate was for the dealerships, like a few $1,000s less, because I know that somebody's going to haggle. They'll bring me down a little bit, and then that's it. However, at that time, actually, a dealership made an offer on the car, which was very close to what I was asking for. And so I took them up on the offer. Bella, now I'm forced to keep the car until it dies. That's not a bad situation. It's a pretty good car. The N55 is a pretty reliable motor. You probably will have to change out the valve cover gasket at some point in time, the oil pan gasket, the oil cooler, oil thermostat, the oil filter housing gasket, all of that stuff you'll probably have to replace. But if you're really into cars and stuff, like, then shouldn't be an issue. Most of those gasket stuffs, like, they look more intimidating than they are. They're more tedious, I would say, than hard. I would say that installing coilovers is harder because you have to actually like get the bolt in perfect alignment, versus like those gaskets, you just have to do everything in a very particular order, line everything up. And lining it up isn't hard, like lining up the bolts for the rear strut. It's just like, make sure that the gasket doesn't fall out when you align everything. I thought our cars would hold value, but I guess last year was the peak for cars. Yeah, pretty much. I would have to agree with you. Ben, Fitment Industries website and Apex's fitment guides are the truth. Yeah. And it's actually a good cross-reference too, right? Because as you saw with Apex's website, it's saying it might fit depending on the tires, it might fit depending on the suspension, and you may need this spacer or this spacer. So what you're going to want to look for is those specifications on Fitment Industries, because the individual uploaders will give you that information. So they'll let you know, with, it's basically the brand of tire that will unlock everything. So once you know, like, you're kind of in this range, you shop around on Fitment Industries, and then you'll be like, okay, this brand, I need to do this. Fabian, do you drive in Sport Plus or normal mostly? Sport Plus. Honestly, Sport Plus on my way to work. I actually drive in eco mode on the way home. I just put it on cruise control because there's no traffic. So I just cruise control. I listen to my podcast, and I pretty much call it a day. Bella, it's just like stocks. I guess I'll have to take the loss and sell it now before it goes down any further. Thanks, Fitch. You're the Wikipedia of M235. Thank you very much. I'm still learning. I learned a lot from just stuff on the internet. I learned a lot of stuff from people here on chat. There's actually a few people here who I would say are more qualified than I am. And I'm very happy when they're in the chat. This is why I encourage a lot of people to talk to the chat, because a lot of you guys are more, up to date with this stuff than I am even. So I hope it all goes well for you. And if you get stuck with the M235i, there's nothing wrong with that. We'll be here for you if you need anything else. Manny, the engine oil pan gasket might be a bit more hard than tedious because of dropping the suffering. Yes, I realized that as soon as I said it. That is absolutely correct. And I would say, if you do have to do it, the one thing that I would say that you should consider, if you really want to get like a lot of performance out of the car, and if you're going to do this anyways, is swap over an S55 oil pan, because it has the additional sump. If you track your car, it'll prevent your engine from going dry. The N55, it's going to be very, very difficult. Like, you got to be like on clear roads, like almost like a track situation, for you to be on the street and cause your N55 to be starved of oil. It's pretty much an only track related issue under higher G forces, and you kind of got to nail it just right. It's almost impossible to do on the street, unless of course it's like the middle of the night, you have open road, and you're taking the turn really hard. But if I'm not mistaken, the S55 oil pan is about 10 to 20 pounds lighter. It lines up just right, and it has the additional sump, so you cannot starve the oil, or sorry, you cannot starve the engine of oil. Okay. So MMR makes a baffle kit. Okay, yeah, I've seen some other people, I forget which engine it is, but they also take, like, basically, like, they take the oil pickup system and then it's almost like a bolt-on. But yes, that's actually a like, if you don't want to, I don't know how much an oil pan costs, but this could be a cheaper route. And if you don't want to get another pan, there it is. But yeah, dropping the subframe can be a pain. The front, yeah, I did it for the sway bars. Not fun. Thanks for that, Manny. See, this is what I mean. Like, I didn't know that. So thank you for putting that in the chat, man. Key, your control arm video with the axle bolt torque plus 90 looks scary. Kind of nervous about it. I can use a mid torque impact wrench to loosen it, right? Obviously would not tighten with the impact. No, not a mid torque. I used the same Milwaukee impact wrench that I used to remove my lug bolts. It couldn't get that off. Removing it is actually easier than you think if you have a breaker bar long enough. So the breaker bar that I use, it's not the longest in the world, but it was very easy. I would say, like, if you can break off your wheel bolts, this should be no problem to break off. And then as far as tightening it goes, take breaks. That part's intimidating, but just do it right, and you should be fine. If you need to, you could get some help. Just make sure that, like I said, no real jerking in there, and just make sure that if you do get help, that the 17 millimeter hex is always fitted into the axle bolt before you pull. So you'll be fine. You know, you can always re-angle the breaker bar so that you press down and you can use your body weight. But yeah, honestly, it probably looked harder in the video. Like, a lot of the stuff that I do in the video, I'm not worried about just the job. I'm also worried about, am I in frame? And in that video, I didn't want the breaker bar to be out of frame and you actually not see what I'm doing. And I also wanted to kind of like show the travel path of the breaker bar. But if you're doing this and you're not worried about something like that, you can just adjust the breaker bar to whatever's the most comfortable to give you the most leverage in order to accomplish the job. I'm pretty sure if I didn't film it, it would be a lot easier because I'm not worried about like the aesthetic look in the video presentation if I'm just doing the job. So you should be fine. Manny, that's from the S55. You're right. Oh, the oil pan. The oil pan. Yeah. MMR baffled sump plate about 455. Let's look it up. Let's look it up since we're here. Oh, wow. It's like $1,000. No way. Is that right? $3,000. What in the world? Oh my goodness. All right, so I don't know if you guys can see. All right, so let's go through this. One major drawback of the N55 engine is the oil pump and pan design. While great for street-driven vehicles, this design falls short when tracking your BMW. Due to the design of the N55 oil pan and pump, higher G loads experienced when cornering can lead to oil starvation and pressure drop, potentially leading to bearing damage and more. By upgrading to the S55 oil pan and pump design, the BMW utilizes in both their standard M4 and Motorsport M4 GT4 models, you can prevent the possibility of oil starvation. The dual pump design used on the S55 engine installs onto the N55 engine easily and without the need for any major modification to the stock block or windage tray. Thanks to the addition of a scavenging pump, oil pressure and deliveries are maintained under all aggressive driving conditions, even when the oil supply is not consistent from the main oil pump. Wow. $3,000. Let's do this instead. That looks... You can almost get a whole other engine for that. Yes, it's used, but it's like, oh my gosh, for half the price, you just S55 swap the thing at that point. Oh my goodness. Here we go. $250. Just get a used one. Yeah, in that case, I would just get a used one. I would not. Yeah, I wouldn't. Shoot, should I just get this? When the time comes? Oh my goodness. Key. You should do a transmission oil change. That should be cool. For tips to do cleanly and efficiently. Your style is so clear and instructional. Thank you. Yes. Yeah, when the time comes, I'll do it. Whenever these, I mean, I plan to keep the car for a long time, so whenever the maintenance is up, I'll do it all. But I'm sorry if you need that one anytime soon. I actually don't have that one scheduled as of right now, but eventually. Manny, MMR baffled sump plate 450 and S55 oil pan scavenging pump. That's the engine you were talking about the pump from. Is 3,000. I agree. It's entirely a track car issue. Yep. Stereo sound agent. Oh, wait, before I get to that, yeah, Manny, it seems even from the ECS listing, it says like the street is fine. Like it's just a track issue thing. So, I mean, if you really want to, it's fine. But I would say if you can source the pan and the parts, I mean, even if you can buy the parts brand new from BMW and get the pan used, like that's not $3,000. Like that's ridiculous. At that price point, like I said, is like when we're looking at the used engines, like you could just S55 swap it for like, you know, you're already halfway there. You're already halfway there. You S55 swap it, and then you could sell your engine to make up for it. Like, yeah, that's really ridiculous. Stereo sound agent. I've read that. I was averaging 1.05 Gs for 25 to 30 meters on the BM3 Stage 2 tune. Luckily, no issue, but I read that about the OEM N55 possibly suffering from oil starvation. Yep. I think the first time I found about this was from Simply Car Things. And then as I started to talk to more and more people who track their car, they kind of relayed the same concerns. I've actually never met anybody who ran into this issue. And it seems like even if you do track your N55, like you got to hit it just right. And you got to hold on to those G-forces for a long enough period of time. Like it has to be just right. Like the conditions nearly need to be all in alignment. But if you do track your car long enough and frequently enough, it'll happen, it seems like. Stereo sound agent. Reading on forums, find a junked M4 and a few parts from the M235R Cup. You can get it from the dealer to get it to fit. Okay. Yeah, I think that's kind of like what our consensus was. So I'm glad that you agree on that as well. So If all three of us are saying it, I'm pretty sure that's probably the best way to go. 3,000 is ridiculous. Manny, confusion. The MMR plate bolts into the N55 pan is, in my opinion, the superior alternative to that insane oil pan swap. Yeah, if we're talking about just like, new parts, and like you don't want to source everything, you want everything brand new. I'm gonna say that you are absolutely correct. I did not believe that it was that expensive. I was thinking like maybe like a swap. Like, of course they're gonna bump up the price a little bit because of a convenience factor of they're sourcing everything for you. Everything is brand new, and you'll get it. So I was thinking maybe like 800, 1,000 maybe, but 3,000, that's ridiculous. So yeah, Manny, I'm glad that you proposed that to share with everybody. So thank you so much for that. I really appreciate you for that. And this is what I mean. Like, this is the best part about these streams is when we have people who are all enthusiasts here together. I definitely don't know everything. I definitely don't know the most here. Manny came through for us today, and then Stereo Sound Agent came in with the confirmation. So I'm glad that they were here today in order to lend their insights. So thank you so much, you guys. And thank you everybody else for the questions today. Key, I think today is the first day that I met you. Actually, I think most people that I talked to earlier too, Fabian, Bella, Ben as well. A lot of first timers here, AR, Isaac. So thank you everybody for coming in. I hope that, the topic that we had earlier makes all of your drives better and makes every drive that you have in your car more pleasant. Ooh, we got one more coming in here. Let's see here. David, help me choose between a 335 IS, E92 DOT, or F3335 M Sport G Speed. My dad is down to buy me one for my first car, and I'm stuck in the middle. If I would say go with whatever has the less mileage, but honestly, I would say go with the F30. Like, the E92 is good. However, like that F platform, it just ended, right? So manufacturers are still coming out with parts for that car. It should have a longer shelf life as far as the aftermarket scene is concerned. However, if you're kind of like, I'm just going to throw all my money at it at once, and then that is what it is, then the E92, because most of the stuff out there is complete, you should be able to make more power with it. If you kind of want to, it's like you have to risk your, I guess, your risk tolerance. If you want the most power possible, but it might not be as reliable, you go with the E92. If you want something that's going to be more reliable and may not have the same power capabilities or ceiling, I should say, then you go with the F30. Key, thanks for this. Got any sneak peeks of what videos are coming? The wheel review. It's not just going to be like, these are the new wheels in the car. It's gonna kind of go over like how to get the proper fitment in, the resources to look at before you put on the tires, what tires to get, all those things. So that's what's going to come up. Also, just like a couple of other small things that kind of broke on the F30. Not like the car's broken, but just wear and tear items. And then I think that's it for now. Yeah, so mostly the wheels, maybe a few detailing things. I'm trying to experiment with that. So some of the stuff about ceramic coating and just like little wear items that go wrong with the F30. Brandon, yeah, I've been enjoying the streams and vids. Okay, right on. Well, thank you for being here with us today. I'm glad that you're enjoying it so far, and I hope you continue to in the future. Yeah, if there's anything that you would like us to cover, um, topic, or even include a segment, or if I have a product that I can do a product review on for you, just let me know, and I'm more than happy to help if I can. Stereo Sound Agent, glad I was able to catch this. Appreciate you, Fritz. Hey, man, I appreciate you today. I appreciate the confirmation on that, and you giving us those numbers earlier, as far as the oil starvation, that whole thing, and then Manny came in clutch with that kit. So thank you everybody for chiming in. I hope all of you enjoy the rest of your evening as well as the rest of the week, and enjoy the drive with your car. Hopefully some of these tips were able to help you out with that today. If there's anything that you'd like me to cover for next week, just let me know. These are the best ways to reach out to me on TikTok or Instagram at VroomTuber. And I'll see all of you guys next week.